A while back I posted a video where I tried to beat Roboquest with just my drones as engineer, and I decided to redo it. The problem is that the formula is boring. I literally just wait around for stuff to happen, so I decided to change the rules a bit. I will be trying to beat Roboquest without shooting guns. The rules are simple. I cannot fire guns. The only exception will be non-damaging alt fires like the barrier and the sonar shot. I can only deal damage with my secondary attack, main ability, head bonking, and any other upgrades I get. I have to beat the final boss on Heroes +2 difficulty. I chose this difficulty because Standard and Heroes would be too easy, and I wanted this challenge to be possible enough without it just resorting to me camping. With that out of the way, it's time to begin the challenge. Choosing my character wasn't difficult. I went with the Commando because he has rockets and a shotgun. I could have chosen the Recon, but melee Recon is absolutely cracked, and I wanted to save that run for another time. I also could have done Engineer, again, but it would have been the same as the last challenge, but with a scrap blaster. But again, I'll try it again someday. For my first upgrade, I lowered my rocket cooldown, since it would be my best damage dealer for big guys and could possibly deal with crowds. After my first shotgun blast, I realized that I would have to be a bit smarter with my shots. Weapons in this game have damage fall off, but you probably won't notice this most of the time, since you're probably in the enemy's face. This first encounter told me that I can't just fire my rockets and shotgun without thinking about the enemies. Like, I just wasted my rocket on a little drone instead of taking out the turret that's right behind him. And then I also wasted another rocket on this little guy instead of taking out the bigger guy behind him. I decided to skip the next two encounters to get to the challenge room, and on my way there I realized something. Head bonking is allowed. I forgot that this was something I could do. Last time when I did a similar challenge I allowed it if it wasn't intentional, but now I can do it whenever I want, meaning it could be a viable source of damage. Anyway, after completing the easiest challenge room ever, I found a legendary blast SMG with a sonar shot alt fire. This would help out by dealing just that extra bit of damage that could potentially one-shot enemies. I exited the room and took out the enemies that I ignored. Then I got my first level up perk. The rocket mag was the best option because rockets are one of my two sources of consistent damage, and it does more reliable burst damage than the shotgun. In the first safe room I bought the claw string as it boosted my shotgun damage. Then I decided to go through the ruins as it has an easy perk point and I wouldn't have to go through the aqua station afterwards. My damage still wasn't too great, but things were dying quick enough and I wasn't taking too much damage. During the next couple encounters I remembered I could rocket jump, which could be helpful. After I fought my first elite enemy who wasn't actually that bad, the only problem was him dashing around, but after a sonar rocket shotgun combo he died. When I leveled up again, I picked the perk Rocket Load, which meant my shotgun hits would lower my rocket cooldown by 2 seconds, and I don't really have to explain why this is good. My first level was completed with an S rank and only took 3 minutes and 19 seconds. In the ruins, I considered buying the atomic mushroom, but I thought explosion radius could help against crowds, so I decided to leave it. I did get a soccer shoe in the free chest, which buffed my head bonk damage by 50%. I jumped into the first encounter, making sure I put the soccer shoe to good use, and then I went to the first arena. Picking the ruins comes at a cost, and that is the 2 arena encounters and the blinders, but in the end they weren't actually too difficult. My main strategy was to stay mobile, use the sonar shot from groups of enemies, head bonk the weaker guys and the drones, and mostly shoot the bigger guys with my rockets and my shotgun. But if my shotgun was ever off cooldown, I would shoot it into a crowd of enemies because it would help lower my rocket cooldown. My next elite encounter wasn't too smooth because I couldn't hit him, and I ended up getting hacked at one point, but eventually he did die. The next challenge room chest got me a super sandwich, which gave me extra movement speed after head bonk, making it a pretty nice upgrade to have. After dealing with some more enemies, I got another level up perk and decided to go with the Fan of Rocket, which would make it easier to get multi-kills and it could do more damage. In the next safe room, I was thinking about getting the hero knee pads, but I decided against it and grabbed french fries instead. This meant getting a shotgun crit lowered my rocket cooldown by 4 seconds. The free chest got me an ugly tie, so I could kill bosses faster. Going into the next arena, I could tell the Fan of Rocket perk was doing its job well, since most ground enemies were easy to take care of. Another elite enemy was waiting for me after the arena, but because I had 2 charges of triple rocket, he was dead before a fight could even start. And this is where I noticed how powerful I was, and that this run could be pretty easy. The only way to make sure is if I could easily deal with the first boss. I went to the secret room and got the free perk point, and I chose Happy Load, which gave me a 20% chance to get a free rocket charge when I fired my rocket. I continued through the stage and reached the final safe room, which had nothing important. The first boss was El Mustico, a fairly small flying boss, and I thought this would be a bit difficult since my triple rockets could be inconsistent. But then for some reason about halfway through the fight, he just got stuck. Which means I could just sit in his face and fire my shotgun and rockets until he died. He used only a couple of attacks, but they were easy enough to dodge. With the boss dead, I used my perk point for Big Mama, which meant my third use of rocket gave them boosted damage and explosion radius. The boss was defeated and the stage was completed with an S rank and in 6 minutes and 4 seconds. Up next was the Fields, which was admittedly a tough stage, but not as bad as the Aqua Station would be. I don't know why, but I grabbed the Shell upgrade, which upped my armor, but lowered my speed. I think I just wanted some extra protection, but also Fury points give you speed, and I could always head bonk, so it didn't hurt to run too much. I also skipped out on grabbing the Beach Ball, even though an invulnerability shield would be nice, but I guess I'm just not a little baby. In this stage, I figured I could leave the little guys for easy head bonks for some added speed. My next elite enemy was a kind of close call, and I decided to play a little bit safer than I was. I also figured out that the high ground is very effective since my rockets get more time to spread, meaning more crowd control. The biggest problem I had were the dashing enemies, since they could effectively avoid my attacks and had quite a bit of health to go through. It was here where rocket jumping was going to be more important, since I could use it to easily boost me forwards to compensate for my lowered speed. The free chest in the challenge room gave me the Pan Flute, which would occasionally shock enemies nearby, which was just a light boost to damage. Just before the safe room, I had a big dude to deal with, and he almost ended the run. For some reason, I decided to jump in the middle of the action, and I was also way too focused on taking down the railbot. After playing a little carefully, I beat the big guy and got my next perk point, which I used for Pyro Powder, which would give me a nice boost to my damage. I figured this would be good for bosses. In the safe room, I bought a Teddy Thermos, so healing cells lasted a little bit longer. After leaving the safe room, I noticed that Pyro Powder was a really nice upgrade for those enemies who would be left with just a small chunk of health after a rocket or a shotgun. Another elite enemy showed up, but a simple rocket blast did the job. The arena was your typical Fields arena. By that I mean there was a lot happening and things could have easily ended in the beginning. After playing a little bit smarter and resisting the urge to press mouse 1, I made it through easily enough. I made it to the end of the level, and if you look closely I could have gotten an S rank if I didn't wait an extra second to get through the door, which means, unfortunately, I got an A rank and finished in 5 minutes and 31 seconds. The Energy Center was up next, which had 2 arena encounters just like the Ruin. I re-rolled my perks and landed on the Smooth Cannon so I could fire my shotgun more. I bought a Hot Dog, which could cause fiery chain reactions when an enemy was killed while they were on fire, and 2 out of 4 of my attacks were fire-based. I also picked up the Frog Prince so I could get some extra movement speed when I take damage. Now, playing through the stage, I could tell you with 100% certainty that nothing was problematic. Oh yeah, those guys. If I did this run around the time of the engineer, then fire damage was the way to go, since I didn't have to fight fire-resistant enemies. The only enemies that actually resisted fire were in the quarry, which is one of the 3 stage 2s. But the devs over at Rise Up decided to add fire-resistant enemies into the energy center. With enemies that resisted my main source of damage, I didn't even know if I could— Just kidding! Turns out fire damage was an added bonus! My base damage from the rockets was already good enough. Back to what I was saying earlier, nothing in this stage was problematic. All I had to do was make sure flamethrower drones wouldn't drain all my scratch damage. Sure, my shotgun wasn't as effective against fire-resistant enemies, but I had a shotgun rocket launcher which was effective. With nothing important in the safe room, I proceeded through the stage with ease, and getting a perk point in the process. I chose dexterity, so the speed penalty wasn't as bad. Combined with head bonking speed and fury speed, it was like the shell never gave me a penalty to begin with. I gotta say, I like how the energy center adds enemies of all elemental resistances, so you have to use a bit of strategy. You can't fly through this stage as an elemental master, you need to mix things up a bit for the most part. Anyway, one arena, an elite, and some more encounters later, I was at the boss. First I grabbed popcorn, which means I can mark enemies to burn them. Technically I'm using a gun for this, but I stated in the rules that non-damaging alt fires count, and all upgrades are legal. And since this is an upgrade doing the damage and not the alt fire, I'd say it's fine. I also grabbed the screwdriver so I can more effectively one-shot enemies with the shotgun. Now it's boss time, the Judge Ball. The boss I would have preferred since he's just pretty easy. He has a few tricks, but nothing a little fire can't help. And since he has one big crit spot that's almost always facing me, it was really easy to get the French fry rocket load combo, meaning I was firing out even more rockets. After beating him, I used my perk point for Warning Rocket, so my shotgun would deal more damage after I used my rocket. I finished the energy center with an S rank and in 4 minutes and 50 seconds. When I arrived to Haven City, I bought a dice, so I had another reroll token. I don't think it was too important, but might as well get it. I also bought a drum, so my shock damage from the pan flute could potentially spread to enemies. I didn't actually notice this taking effect. From the chest, I got a gingerbread Jeremy, so the healing bot was a little more effective. With nothing else to do, it was time for the stage. Haven City is a fun stage because their goal is to run through and kill 4 big guys before leaving, and that was exactly my plan. I ran out the door, took out the first encounter, then ran straight to the first big red dot I saw on the map. After a few shots, he was taken care of. Also, I guess there was an elite enemy there, but he was also dead. The next big guy was also easily taken care of, which really shows how powerful I'd become. I got another perk point, which I spent on Battle Fever, which meant my shotgun came off cooldown when I fired a rocket. The rest of the stage really isn't too important because of how quickly the big guys went down, but there was this one bozo who dashed up to me just to get head bonked. I used another perk point for Smooth Cannon and finished this stage with an S rank and in 5 minutes and 10 seconds. The final stage. If I died here, I would be incredibly disappointed. I got a rake in the free chest so I can deal more damage to turrets, and went through the door. The first encounter wasn't difficult since they were all grouped together. There were also a few big guys, but they also went down easily, just like the last stage. For some reason, I decided to be a complete idiot during this encounter, and an even stupider idiot during the challenge room, almost costing the run, but I managed to recover using a strategy called Time to Get Out of Here. On my way to the next challenge room, there were a few enemies who allowed me to get my health back. I got another perk point and I used it on Pyro Punishment so I could deal more damage to burning enemies. After completing the last challenge room, it was time to fight the boss. Vito Royale was the chosen boss for this run, and he's also my favorite. The combination of the music and his fast attacks makes this a great boss. Also, the ticking clock of the platform game that you can control by staying up for as long as you can, or strategically going down a level to help avoid damage is great. It's a really fun way to end a run. Uncle Jim is also kind of fun, but I think Vito Royale is just better. Anyway, the reason I'm talking about the boss fight and not the run is because he just died. The burn damage stacking with the rocket shotgun juggling meant he didn't stand a chance. I finished this stage with an S rank and in 3 minutes and 56 seconds. Unfortunately, because of the fields, I only got an A rank, but the entire run took 28 minutes and 54 seconds. This was a fun way to improve the last Roboquest run, since I was a lot more active rather than waiting for things to happen. Sure, I had to wait a bit in the beginning, but after I got a few perks, I was able to easily clean house. And I will be doing this challenge with all the other classes. I'm probably going to do Recon last, since I'm pretty sure everybody plays melee Recon. But I'll have another challenge for Recon. My next choice for this challenge will probably be Guardian, Engineer, or Ranger. Basically the other classes that aren't Recon. Anyway, I hope you liked the video, and I still can't do outros.